Prime Minister's facing calls from his own party to implement more immigration cuts ahead of the next election. And to get on with it.
A group of Conservative MPs say the proposed measures would reduce net migration by 400,000 and not cutting migration risks a voter exodus.
And the author of the report is in the studio with us. He is Tom Hunt. He's the Conservative MP for Ipswich. 400,000 a year. Well, that's pretty good going, because last year legal migration was 606,000. That's the equivalent of a major city coming in every year with no provision for housing, NHS, schools, infrastructure. It's disastrous.
I think this is largely about, looking at that 2019 manifesto. We stood in a manifesto saying that we would bring down net migration. At the time, it was around sort of 220,000, and we said we'd bring it down. It's now gone up significantly. This plan that we've published today is a pathway to us getting back on track. It's a pathway to us ahead of the next general election getting just below that figure it stood at 2019, which I still say is too high, but I think it's stage one in rebuilding that trust with the public on this issue. It's
about 20 signatories on this report of all Conservative MPs. Why are you having to put such pressure on the leadership when it is a vote winner? Because we see it time and time again that reducing immigration is at the top of the list of the things that people are concerned about. Precisely from what Andrew said about the lack of services to provide for people. Why are you having to do this?
Well, I don't think it's... we've ended the EU free movement for the first time in a huge amount of time. We've now got control of our legal migration system. Good news. It's a good news that we can actually have this debate, because actually when we were in the EU and we had EU free movement, this debate would be pointless. So at least we can actually have this debate. So that's something which I think the government deserves credit for. And actually, the Prime Minister has prioritised illegal migration, one of his 5 priorities, and also him and the Home Secretary have said that the numbers are too high, we're going to come down. Already done some things, for example, on student dependence. And it's got to come down significantly by the next general election. I think it's fair enough, that the current figure does take into account the Ukrainian and the Hong Kong refugees. But even taking that into account, it's still far too high. Yeah, and the students, how on earth we allowed these students to come in and then bring all their dependents in? I mean, how many years has that been going on? Well, one of the things in our report, it says that when it comes to international students, we will discriminate between universities unashamedly. So higher quality universities, higher quality courses. Clearly, if you're an international student, you're sort of doing highly important scientific work at sort of Granta Park in Cambridge. That's something we could probably say, we'll go ahead with that. But if you're going to come in and to an underperforming university, studying a degree of very little value to our country, and then bring your entire family with you as well, that is something that... And also the fact that once you finish your degree course, you can hang around for 2 or 3 years afterwards, even if you haven't got a job. I mean, that clearly is not the right thing. So the government have already made some big moves in this. We're going further. We're suggesting more movement.
Tom, I think what is a little controversial maybe in the report is that you want to cut down on the visas for care workers. We need more care workers, don't we?
Well, I mean, I think that that would be gradual, but I think it's important that we realise that there's 30,000 young people currently studying for BTECs in health and social care. We have a large number of people in this country economically inactive. We shouldn't be dependent upon cheap labour from abroad when it comes to our care sector. We have to address some fundamental points about our education system. Why has it failed so dramatically to fill so many skill shortages? That we are dependent upon cheap labour from abroad. So, what the government suggested on student dependence, it would be done maybe slightly gradually, but it does need to happen. It does need to happen. That visa with an income threshold far lower than the average income threshold for coming to the country was introduced on a temporary basis during the pandemic. We're just bringing that to an end.
If the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary don't get to grips with this immigration issue, I think it's terminal for the Conservative Party at the next election.
No, I mean... The New Conservative group, we're called New Conservatives because we are literally New Conservatives. We're Conservatives elected in 2017 and 2019 after that Brexit referendum. Many of us represent constituencies that were never previously represented by Conservative MPs. And to many of those voters, immigration is a number 1 or number 2 issue. It's a huge issue for them. Many of these voters can also see how immigration impacts many of the other issues, public services, housing, rapid social and cultural change. So no, I agree. We've got control of the immigration system. We can have this debate, but we've got to bring numbers down to sustainable levels. Ipswich, where I represent, I think over the last 40, 50 years, in many respects, has benefited from immigration. But that was when it was at sustainable levels. I think what we've seen more recently has been numbers that are unsustainable. And that's a shame. We want to benefit from immigration at sustainable levels, but at managed levels, and what we've seen, I think, and it was ushered in by the last Labour government, we need to be more robust and pushing back about what was introduced by the last Labour government.
Your constituency of Ipswich, what does your Labour opposition feel about this?
Well, I know what he feels about illegal migration. We've got a hotel in the town centre in Ipswich filled up with illegal migrants. My opponent...
They crossed the channel.
Who illegally enter this country via a safe country, which is called France.
Yes.
My Labour opponent, before he was elected, made multiple trips to the Calais camp where he appeared to be actively encouraging illegal migration. Recently, we had a protest against the use of the hotel. He went to the counter-protest.
Oh. This is Jack Abbott.
That's his name, with a huge megaphone, surrounded by a load of people with sort of banners to the equivalent of all borders are racist. So this is... and ultimately, I do get frustrated that, over the last decade, the Conservative Party haven't done more on this issue, but I still get up, I still knock on doors, and I will always tell people to vote Conservative, because the alternative, the Labour Party, we may as well just give up, frankly.
Yeah.
If the Labour Party get in on this issue, we may as well just give up on illegal migration, but also on legal migration as well.
What's the response from Number 10 and ministers to this report, Tom? What have they said to you?
Well, I think the sort of the Home Office on this issue, I think they'd agree with a large amount of it, and I think so will Number 10.
The Home Secretary would certainly agree with it.
What's ever so slightly frustrating is I think it's healthy that this debate's going on in the Conservative Party. I think it's healthy that we're having that debate. These are 12 proposals that are I think good proposals. And sometimes in the media this has sort of been written up as a blow to the Prime Minister and everything else. It's certainly not. We are supporters of the Prime Minister. Yeah. I backed the Prime Minister to become Prime Minister. I'm very pleased with his stance on illegal migration, and I've got confidence over time he will deliver results on that. Yeah. So, look, this isn't designed to undermine anyone. This is designed to be constructive, and we're supporters of the Prime Minister.
Should you be taking the Rwanda deal back to an appeal?
What is really frustrating about that is how it was April 2022 that this policy was first announced. Here we are, 14 months down the line, over 14 months down the line, and the legal establishment of this country is still figuring out whether or not it's OK or not.
I know. Yeah. And all these lawyers on legal aid.
Yeah. But however, important to note, Appeal Court, Lord Chief Justice agreed with the government.
He did.
And also, it wasn't like the Appeal Court was saying per se Rwanda is an inappropriate, wrong country. It was a technicality.
It was a technicality. They didn't say it was an unsafe country. They were all concerned that there were not enough assurances that some of the people would be sent back to countries which they allegedly fled from to escape terror. Yeah. Except I don't think many of them did flee terror. I think most of them are economic migrants.
Well, they've all come from France, so by default they are, because they haven't applied for asylum in the first safe country. And that is a key point to note. I do find it frustrating that many individuals who have never had to live with the consequences of uncontrolled mass migration, huge levels of illegal migration, are many of the most vocal critics of his policies. It's unhealthy. The chasm that has opened up between where most of the public are in migration and the reality. This report is part of trying to close that chasm. Yeah. That's good for democracy, and I think it will get better outcomes for this country.